we're going to do is we're going to go over some of the GrowthDay apps I took, notes I took from the GrowthDay live event with Brendan Burchard a couple of weeks ago. It was better than I could hope and imagine for, and I had high expectations. So
earbuds, that's what I'm after. They're charging.
What's that?
I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was unmuted. I was telling my daughter something. I apologize.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. So it was awesome. It was 4 days. It was Brendan Burchard. It was Ed Mylett, Trent Shelton, Anthony Trucks, Jamie Kern Lima, Lori Harder, Mel Abraham. And it went from 9:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night, 3 days in a row. And then Sunday, it went from 9:30 in the morning till about 2 p.m. And I've got 20 some odd pages of notes. So we're not going through all those today. So that's what it'll be next week. So last week, we talked about what Brendan Burchard talked about to kick off the event. So today, we're going to talk about the second speaker that went, one of my favorite people, Ed Mylett. That's who was second. A little bit about Ed Mylett. He has the podcast called the Ed Mylett Show. He has another book called Max Out. And my goal is I'm going to get on his jet at some point. Yeah, not he doesn't rent the jet. It's his jet. And I'm going to get on that. I'm going to get on his jet one day. Angie makes an appearance.
Good afternoon.
Angie, today we're talking about this guy, Ed Mylett.
Awesome.
That's he was the second one to go. So I'm gonna have a visual aid later, boys and girls and ladies. I'm gonna have a visual aid later. So get your pen and paper ready. Okay. So the very first thing that Ed Mylett talked about, mortality motivation. Because from the moment you got here, the clock's ticking. You know, tomorrow is not promised, or the next day, or the next 5 minutes. So when you think of what he talked about was, when you realize that this is coming to an end and we don't know when that is, maybe you need to stop thinking about acting on whatever you're going to do and actually act on whatever it is you're going to do. You know, so that's the first thing he said. And then he said, how you connect with people. You know, we're all in some way connecting with other people. He said, show them your imperfections. Because then you don't have it all together. Like me and Candace, we turns out we live 2 miles apart from each other. We had no idea. You know, I found her on Facebook. We became friends, and you know, she joined my Power Hour, which I will talk about later. And while we were talking, I said, "Where do you live?" And she said, "Deer Park." I said, "Deer Park, Texas?" Like I had no idea, because it was a statewide thing or whatever, nation. I don't know where it was. And she's like, "Yeah." I said, "Huh, that's interesting." I said, she goes, "Where do you live?" I said, Deer Park, Texas. So we literally live, 2 miles apart from each other. But when we spoke, we met up at Starbucks to have she had coffee, or she had a tea, I think, iced tea, some real long name. I don't know what it's called. I just got a bottle of water. I don't know. I don't drink coffee. But we had a connection, and I told her, like, I don't have all figured out for sure, so, but that the imperfections, when you're vulnerable with people, it shows them that it's okay to be vulnerable with you. So I'm not going to say lead with your imperfections, like, I'm a royal colossal screw up and the whole deal, but know that, hey, we're human too, give people grace. And, my one-line business plan, be curious, not judgmental, because if the spotlight was turned and someone did some heinous act or whatever, well, if the spotlight was turned on me, I'm probably guilty of some of those too. Okay. So whatever. But he said this, he said, you neglect your kids when you don't pursue your dream. Ouch. I need to get like a toy microphone and like be able to drop the mic whenever he said that, the lady behind me, she goes, oh, talk to us, so it was funny, and then he said, our mistakes don't define us, and we often disqualify ourselves from not being able to help others because we think, oh, I failed at this thing, and as Zig Ziglar said, failure is an event, it's not a person. It just because you failed at the test or whatever doesn't mean you're an idiot or you're stupid. It just means in this test, you either didn't study or didn't understand or didn't ask for help and you failed. But that doesn't make you a failure. That just means you failed at this particular event. Then he quoted Napoleon Hill, who has some pretty good books you might want to look into. Napoleon Hill said, Ed Mylett said, Napoleon Hill said, if you can survive temporary pain, on the other side of that is another version of you. So sometimes, sometimes life sucks. Let's just call it like it is, but it's who can I become out of this trial or difficulty that I can go and help somebody else with, Then he said he has two basically superpowers. He has more than two, but he has two superpowers. He loves people and he knows how to connect with people, and he knows how to communicate his ideas to get his point across. Okay. Then he said, there's two types of people. There's people who are riding a merry-go-round, and we're all familiar with the merry-go-round. It doesn't go very fast. It doesn't go very high. Doesn't go very low. It's just, okay, whatever. Nobody's got hurt on a merry-go-round ever. In the history of Earth, nobody's ever got hurt on a merry-go-round. Okay. But whenever we're self-employed people, or we want to be self-employed, I know for sure there's 4 of us on the call right now, and we're all self-employed in some way, shape, or form. Okay. He said, but the thing about a merry-go-round is, he said, you kind of see the same stuff over and over again because you're not going very fast. And it's like, okay, there's the popcorn stand, or there's the corn dog station, or there's the slushy machine, or whatever. Okay. But he said the people that are the world changers aren't on a merry-go-round, they're on a roller coaster. Now, a roller coaster, there's ups, there's downs, there's twists, there's turns, there's loops, there's all kinds of stuff. Now, you're still going you're not going anywhere, but you're going there a lot faster, and it's a lot more fun. I mean, a roller coaster is a lot more fun than a merry-go-round. But the part of it is, which we love the highs, the roller coaster. And then whenever you start going down, you're officially committed. Like, you ain't getting off that thing, But the highs come with lows too. So you're not going to have your A game 24/7, 365. But that's a part of it, because while you're going down, now you got to come back up again. And okay, so like those old Geico commercials where the pig is sticking the whirly thing out and he goes, wee, and it's like he's on a roller coaster. Okay. So that's what you're on whenever you choose that. But he said, whenever you're on the roller coaster, or you choose the roller coaster, not because you're stuck on the roller coaster. If you choose the roller coaster, you can't get confused with being on a merry-go-round and being a roller coaster. You got to know which one you're on. But he said, if you choose the roller coaster, he said, you've got to get committed to being on the roller coaster. Because the only people that get hurt on roller coaster is the ones that jump off the roller coaster. You know, that's the only way you can get hurt, because it's really, really safe. Yeah. So me and Max and Jennifer were at Universal Studios last year, and we got on Hulk or one of the rides, and Max was scared. And he said, I don't want to fall off. And the lady that was buckling us in to make sure we were secure, she goes, son, don't worry about it. She goes, we're not in the business of losing people. So like, you're going to be safe, you know? And then he said, responsibility, like 2 words, not 1 word. He said, it's not who's to blame or at fault. You have the ability to respond in any given circumstances. You can respond or react, as Zig Ziglar said. React is negative, respond is positive. And then he said something, we are designed to respond. You know, whenever you're a baby, you respond, you're hungry, you're going to, you know, cry and have a fit or whatever to get some attention because you want some response. And then he said, the difference between winning and losing is so close that it's too scary to even talk about. Because how many more times are you one more thing away before you strike the gold or you hit the oil or you land it? Or you're one more call away from a conversation that changes your whole existence, you know? But how many times do we stop right before we're about to get the breakthrough? You know, because if you keep digging, you will eventually get the breakthrough. It has to happen. And then he said, the problem with vision is depth perception, because it might be closer than you think. And we keep saying it, you know, we're going to go, it's out there, it's out there. Well, if it keeps being out there, you're always chasing it because you're never going to get it. But if it's closer than you think, maybe you start drawing that vision to yourself, you know, so that may be something to consider too. And then, like he talked about in this book, which Power One More, I highly recommend this book. It's fantastic. He says in this book, and what he said in the thing, he said, say you're on the roller coaster and you're not where it's like, and you're in the bottom and you're trying to go back up. He says, don't quit for one more day. Sometimes all you can do is literally live to fight another day. And so I've been there, guilty. So there's been days where I'm like, all I want to do is go in that bed in there and just sleep the rest of the day away, and I'll live to fight another day. Because sometimes life beats you down. And Brendan Burchard talked about this a little bit too. Whenever he went, he said, like the life on the roller coaster, he said, Mondays, we're ready to go. We're rip roaring. We're going to go tackle the world. And then by Thursday, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're saying, why do I suck so bad? You know, like I'm the worst person ever. But that's how the roller coaster goes. Sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. Okay, so then Ed Mylett said, in life, you don't get your goals, you get your standards. Oof. That was another one of those mic drop moments. Okay, so now show and tell time, boys and girls. Show and tell time. He had this. 10 levels of mastery. Okay. And all of these start with the power of whatever. And just for space, I didn't put all. So it's the power of, and then I'm going to put it in. So the very first one, energy. Because like Brendan Burchard said, what I talked about last week, our bodies think like a power plant. A power plant doesn't generate the energy, it produces, it doesn't make the energy, it creates the energy. Well, we can do that too with our own bodies. Okay. The next one is physiology. That's a big word usage. Physiology and vitality. Okay. Physiology and vitality. How you physically move your body, that's in your control. And, you know, you can, if you physically can't move, maybe you can walk, or maybe you do breathing techniques, or you do whatever to stimulate your body, because generally when we start moving our bodies, this kicks into gear and we might have an idea that we didn't think about. You know, we've all heard, hello, Miss Janine from the UK. How are you? It's, you know, like oftentimes when you're in the shower and your brain's kind of just, you're going into habit because you shower the same way every single day, but you're moving and all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's that answer to that question I was asking about, you know? Okay. So the third is emotional fitness. I guess I should have realized these were a little bit longer than I thought before I was going to start writing them down. Emotional fitness and psychological strength. Psychological, that is a big word usage. Psychological, okay, strength. Okay, so, oh, hold on, we got somebody else coming in. Johnny Wan's coming in. Okay, emotional fitness and psychological strength. Like, what are you feeding your mind with? You know, that's within your control. You can choose what you think about. Okay, the next one, the fourth one is connection and caring. He said, it might be coming later. Maybe not. He said, somebody said in there, he said, connection and caring. Whenever we start having a pity party, all our thoughts about ourselves and not about somebody else. Because when you get your eyes off yourself and realize that there's somebody else who can use what you have to offer, and get your eyes off yourself and get them onto them and get into their world, that's when things really move. Okay. The next one, strategic planning and effective decision making. Planning, oh boy, and decisions. Okay, strategic planning and decisions. Okay, because with that one right there, yes, think about your plan, but then don't think about your plan, work your plan, and then test. And if that doesn't work, then pivot and try this and try that. Always be testing. And then decision making is, you know, the best people, the best executives, they hire slowly, but they fire quickly, or they get people off one seat on the bus to a different seat of a bus, to quote Jim Collins from Good to Great, or the energy bus from John Gordon. You may have the right person, they're just in the wrong seat. So you got to get them on the right seat so they can live in their strengths more. Okay. The next one, the power of vision and purpose. Okay. Vision and purpose. Because, I mean, the Bible says without vision, the people perish. And you need to have, like, I'm heading, this is my North Star. I don't know exactly how it's going to look, but I'm heading this direction. And I'm going to figure out how to get over there. Okay. Like I said earlier, I'm getting on Ed Mylett's jet at some point in my life. It is happening. I don't know how yet, but I'm getting on his jet. He doesn't know it yet, but he's going to know it soon enough because I'm getting on his jet. Okay. The next one, the power of massive action and momentum. Okay. He said momentum is the great magnifier. Because think about it, like if you like sports or you ever seen sports, if you're really into it, you can tell, generally, you can either feel it while you're watching something, or at the end of it, you can say, this play right here, they were down in the dumps, this play happened, and all of a sudden they steamrolled the other team. Momentum, because once you get a couple of wins, you're like, oh, yeah, this is pretty good. I want some more of this, so that you continue doing what you had been doing to get the wins in the first place. Okay. The next one, the power of will and resilience. Will and resilience. Okay. Because, like we talked about earlier, sometimes life sucks. And sometimes you don't always win. Well, actually, it's impossible for you to always win, because you're gonna have to lose at some point, because you're keep getting better competition. And maybe you don't have your A game that day. Maybe you show up with your C+ game and somebody shows up with their A game. Well, if y'all are equal level, you might lose a few, but then it's that resilience and that grit. And I'm willing to die on this hill, or I'm gonna get over this hill, or I'm gonna die on the hill trying. Because that's where you're on the roller coaster. You might be on a little down part. Well, if you keep staying on the roller coaster, eventually you start getting where it's fun. And it's because nobody likes the down part. It's like we like going 100. Okay. The next part, the power of an extraordinary environment. Environment. This is the whole show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Who are you choosing to hang around with? Are you hanging around with, not people that are uplifting and encouraging, and they're always trying to bring you down to their level? Like Jim Rohn said, you don't give major time to minor people. You give major time to major people, and not just time physically, emotionally, spiritually, physically in their presence. If people bring you down, you don't want to hang around those people. So, funny story, in my previous life, when I was a lab tech, I had a friend named Jared who was in the lab with me. I always worked nights, and he worked in one department and I worked in a different department. And he was into sports and I was into sports. And let's just say sometime we had differing opinions. Okay. Now I was 100% right, but he was also 100% right, because that was his opinion. Okay. These weren't facts. These are just, and we're yelling at each other, but we're not mad at each other. We're just being energetic and enthusiastic. And one of our bosses said, what's up with you and Jared? I said, what are you talking about? She's like, well, I heard y'all screaming at each other. And I said, oh, we weren't mad at each other. So we were just having a heated debate. We're going to go play golf as soon as we get out of work today. And she's like, really? I said, yeah, go ask them. I said, we're not mad at each other. We're cool. But that it made the day go by faster, because we were engaged in conversation. We weren't trying to physically attack each other or verbally. We weren't calling each other an idiot or whatever. But you might have said, I think you're stupid about what you think. Like, did you watch the same game that I watched? But that extraordinary environment is, who are you choosing to surround yourself with? Maybe you need to limit your exposure to some of those people that aren't, on an upward trend. Maybe you've got too many merry-go-round people in your circle, and you need some roller coaster people, because it's always not, you can't go up and up forever. Eventually you're going to come down. It's the way it works. And then the last one, the power of one more. One more rep, one more call, one more connection, one more I love you to a family member, one more minute talking to whoever, one more anything. So what he said was, I mean, look how great my my drawing is. I mean, I didn't realize that some of these words were a lot bigger than I thought. I said, "Ooh, I got to scribble these pretty quick." But anywho, you get the idea. Okay, so energy, physiology and vitality, emotional fitness and psychological strength, connection and caring, strategic planning and decision-making, vision and purpose, action and momentum, will and resilience, extraordinary environment, and the power of one more. Okay, so what was 2 and 3? 2 was physiology and vitality. And yes, Mr. Juan, Texans, I mean, come on. Hey, those that know. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about being from Texas. Those that know. Okay. And then the third one was emotional fitness and psychological strength. Okay. So one more. So about a year ago, I started going to the gym. I go, if I'm in town, I go 4 days a week, Monday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, Friday afternoon, and Saturday morning. But what Ed said, which I've never really thought of, he said, think if you go to the gym and you do 10 reps, everyone does 10 reps and y'all all go the exact same time. But if you do 11 reps instead of 10, just one more rep multiplied by a longer time, you would expect to get better results because you're doing one more rep than everyone else. So if everyone else is doing, you go 3 times a week and everybody does 10 reps, they're doing 30. Well, you're doing 33. Then if they're doing 60 by the next month, you're doing 66. And then they're doing 90 and you're doing 99. So before you know it, you're doing a whole month's worth of extra work while they're doing the same just by doing one extra rep. And maybe it's I'm going to make 10 calls today, but maybe you do 11. Maybe you just do one more because maybe that last one you makes all the difference in the world. And that's where the magic happens, but that's the great separator because one more, what if it's, like I'm going to tell my kid one more time, I love you. Just one more time. Because you never know the last time you're not going to be able to tell them anymore. One more conversation, one more connection, and in the book, spoiler alert, he started his talk at Brendan Burchard's deal. And he said, my name's Ed Mylett and I'm the son of an alcoholic. And I said, I knew that, but I was like, right off the bat, okay, we're just gonna get right after it, where there's no, this isn't playtime. The gloves are coming off. But he said, no problem. See you, Angie. Thanks. Angie's a legend, by the way. So Angie's responsible for myself and Johnny Juan and Julia all being in the Ziegler community. She's the gatekeeper to Ziegler. So she's like world class at what she does. But anyways, Ed's dad was an alcoholic. And then one day he made a decision to stop. And what he said in the book and on the stage was, whenever you're struggling, like, especially like say with an addiction, like say alcohol or drugs or whatever. Okay. He said, whenever dad would think about having a drink, he would shorten the time that he would not have one. And he would say, he'd wake up every day and say, I'm not going to have a drink today. He said, I'm not committed for the next 50 years, never have a drink, but I can commit to not having one today. Well, if you keep adding that, not doing it today, then you don't have another drink. And that's the same thing that I implemented since January 1st of my morning routine. I'm 100% not committed to doing my morning routine on Saturday morning. 100%. And if, like if that in that movie Ant-Man, from the Marvel, when they put that truth serum in them, if you injected truth serum in me right now and asked me, are you committed to doing your morning routine on Saturday? This is Thursday, by the way, for those watching the replay later. This is Thursday. I would 100% tell you I'm not committed to doing it Saturday. 100%. But I'm committed to doing it tomorrow, which is Friday. Okay. So far, doing that, just committing to only one day at a time, this is the 131st day of the year so far today, 131st day of the year. And so far, I'm 131 for 131. I haven't missed a day yet. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hold your applause. Hold your applause. Okay. So, but all that is because I'm not committed to doing it for the next 6 years of my life. I'm only committed to doing it tomorrow. That's like that one more philosophy. I'm only committed to doing it one more time. That's it. No exceptions. So that may be something to, that might be your key takeaway there. Just, like the story goes of Navy SEALs, when they have Hell Week and they basically get killed, at least once during Hell Week, the people that made it through Hell Week said, whenever they get woken up on Monday, they don't think about graduation on Friday. Their sole purpose in life is just to make it to breakfast on Monday. That's it. Then after that, their sole purpose is to make it to lunch on Monday. Then after that, their sole purpose is to make it to dinner on Monday, because they know they're going to get 3 meals a day. It might be for 25 seconds, but they get 3 meals. Then after Monday at dinner, all their existence is tied to, let me make it to breakfast on Tuesday. That's it. Because then they'd get overwhelmed, they would do nothing and they would quit. Okay. So he says, beware of the merry-go-round people. That's what we talked about, the environment. And then he said, you have a responsibility to listen to your heart. Responsibility. Because it's not so much what we know up here, because common sense isn't common practice. It's what we know in here, that we know this is happening, but sometimes you've got to go against what this says to listen to what this says and keep moving the ball forward. Okay. Then he said, change the questions you repeatedly ask yourself and you will change your life. Change the questions you repeatedly ask yourself and you will change your life. Because if the question you always ask is of yourself, why are you such an idiot? Or why can't you do X, Y, Z? Why didn't you get up when you said? Why don't you do all this? But if you start asking a different question, who would I need to be to make this happen? Who would I need to be to get one more phone call? Who would I need to be to do whatever? Okay. And then he says, you always have a choice, which is true. Okay. Absolutely everything you have a choice about. This isn't what he said. This is what I say. It's a crude example, but it's the best one I got. Okay. So even if there's a gun to your head, you can still choose the bullet. You don't have to do what they say, even if there's a gun to your head. Now, I'm not saying there won't be consequences, but you still have a choice. You can choose the bullet or you can choose to do what they say. But, if it's like, I want you to go kill that person or I'm going to kill you, it's like, all right, I'll just take it. I'll just take one for the team. You know what I'm saying? Now that's an extreme example, and that's just the first one that popped in my head. But the one with the gun to your head, you still have a choice. You can choose the bullet. Okay. Then it says, oh, this was another mic drop moment. He said, attach the love you have for another human being for the pain you will go through. Because that gets our eyes off ourselves and onto other people. And, you know, when he was here, some guy named Jesus, who turned out pretty well for himself, he said, the greatest among you will be your servant. So attach the love you have for another human being for the pain you will go through. Then he wrapped it up by saying, who has anyone on this call not seen The Matrix, the movie? Because if you haven't seen this, you're going to be totally lost by what I'm about to tell you. But if we've all seen the movie The Matrix, and let's assume we have, it's not a spoiler alert, but this is what happens, okay? For the people that haven't seen it, you've been on a rock for 20 years and you haven't seen The Matrix, okay? Morpheus, who is Lawrence Fishburne, is searching for the one, quote unquote, the one, okay? And if you remember in the movie, they find, his name was John Anderson in the movie, but then he becomes Neo, which was in The Matrix, okay? And they say, how is this possible? And he said, he's the one. But if you remember, Lawrence Fishburne believed it. He believed it. But Neo, AKA John Anderson, AKA Keanu Reeves, didn't believe it for himself. He didn't see it. But Lawrence Fishburne saw something in him that he didn't see. His name was Morpheus. Morpheus saw something in Neo that he didn't see. But then whenever he cracks the code and he realizes who he was made to be, this is Neo, John Anderson, Keanu Reeves. Once he realized that he's the one, they're like, he is the one. Like, he's the one we're looking for. So then he said, now, Ed Mylett's got, I don't know how much he's worth, but last I heard he's worth like 550 million. Okay, which is not terrible. I mean, I'll take it. Okay, I don't know how he's going to feed his family on 550 million, but I guess he'll figure it out. Okay, so he's got multiple houses all over, no big deal. He did have, or he had a jet, and I don't know if it's being serviced or I don't know what the deal is, but he was flying commercial. But anyways, he has a jet, and I think he just bought an island somewhere. It's called Hope Island or something. I don't know anything about that, except I think he has an island. Okay. But he said, if you go back far enough in your family history, there will be a point where your family didn't have any money. If you go back far enough. He said, but the people that are on the merry-go-round, like we all are on this call, I mean, not the merry-go-round, the roller coaster, not the merry-go-round. He said, you can become the one for your family, where from the moment you show up, after you can change your financial destiny from your family and your family's their relationships and their mindsets and their habits once you show up. And he said, and until that one shows up, your family lived a different life. He said, my kids, he said, we were like middle class growing up. And he said, as far back as I can tell, we were middle class. But he said, we're not middle class anymore. Because I showed up and I've put in the work and I've done the time and I've done all this. And, you know, he said, my kids' lives are going to be vastly different growing up than my life was growing up, because I showed up and I determined that I'm going to be the one. And then he challenged us to do whatever you have to do to be the one in your family. Like, think of like, you're going to be the Neo, because from that moment on, his life was different. He said at his lowest point, I'd heard this before, but I hadn't heard it to this depth. He said him and his wife, Ed Mylett and his wife, I can't think what her name is. She has kind of an unusual name. Anyways, they met when they were in kindergarten. Dated all through elementary school, all through junior high, all through high school, all through college, got married, have kids, the whole deal. He said the lowest point of my marriage, he said, I just had a car repossessed. He said, I wasn't bankrupt, but he said, I was hanging on by the slimmest thread to I was going to be bankrupt. He said, they cut the water off at our apartment. He said, now I've had electricity turned off and you can live without electricity. But he said, if you don't have water, that you can't shower, you can't cook, you can't, brush your teeth. So he said, him and his wife had to go down to the outdoor shower in the apartment they were living in. He would put up a towel. She would go into that outdoor shower. She would shower. She would dry off. And then she'd come outside and she'd hold the towel while he went in the shower. And I thought it was for like a couple of days. He said he did that for 2 months. Because that's how he was on the roller coaster. He was in one of those down parts, but he didn't throw in the towel and quit. He always had that attitude. Tomorrow's going to be a better day, and I'm gonna stay in the fight, and I'm gonna give it one more shot. So, but then he said, for the people, Janine, very briefly, I said, there's merry-go-round people and there's roller coaster people. Merry-go-round people is kind of boring. You just go to your job. Then there's roller coaster people like all of us are on this call. He said, you can't be the one if you choose the merry-go-round life. Now, the merry-go-round life is not, you're the CEO of Apple and you have a day job. That's not a merry-go-round. Okay. But and there's nothing wrong with this. My parents were one of them. My mom was a principal secretary, or Janine, in your language, head teacher's secretary for 25 years. Went to school, went to work, whatever. My dad was working at one of the plants around here, but he was like, I don't want to work this shift. So he went and got a job as basically a carpenter in the maintenance for the school. But then he could have his nights and weekends off because he didn't want to have shift work. So they're just merry-go-round people. We were kind of, I would say, lower middle class. Yeah, maybe at the very, very top end of the lower class, but just we had plenty of love, we had plenty of food, but it was a struggle because they just didn't make a whole lot of money because they were on the merry-go-round, But in order to become the one, you got to get off that merry-go-round and get on the roller coaster. So whenever the bad times come, and they will come, just remember that you're a roller coaster person. Okay. You're a roller coaster person. I'm very much tempted to get one of those little pop figurines, that have different characters on them. And I'm very tempted to get one of Keanu Reeves in The Matrix and set it right here on my desk. Because because I'm going to be the one. You go back far enough, to my knowledge, anybody I've talked to in my family, to my knowledge, they've never owned their own business, to my knowledge. I asked my grandma before she passed away. I asked about her mom. She didn't know. I asked my great-grandma when she was alive. And everybody had a regular 9-to-5 job, basically, as far back as I can tell. But I'm 100% on the merry-go-round. I mean, I'm 100% on the roller coaster, 100%. So if you're on the merry-go-round, maybe you might want to get a ticket to the big ride because it's way more fun. But the highs are high and the lows are low. But if you're aware of that, then okay, well, it's just one of those things. I'm going to persevere and I'm not going to quit. And I'm going to just keep going for one more day. Okay, so any thoughts or questions? Going once.
It's a lot of very good information. It kind of describes my day.
Right. Mine
Yeah.
too, some days.
Yeah, it's been a crazy day, and I woke up in a complete fog. But yeah, and my first call at 7 o'clock this morning was with David Wright. So yeah, it's kind of been that kind of a day.
Well. Oh, well, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then Janine, you're gonna appreciate this. The sun is still gonna come up in the east tomorrow. Which
Yes, it will.
wait, there's a funny, so me and Janine work together, and I told her that one time. I said, the sun comes up in the east, and she's like, I don't know what direction that is. I said, look outside your window. Where's the sun? Like, it's the opposite if it's in the afternoon. And she's like, it's in England over here. It's always cloudy. I don't know where the sun is. I said, well, in the morning, one side of the sky is going to be light, and the opposite direction is going to be dark. And she's like, well, that's true. I said, that's east. Which way is it, Janine? Which way? East? Well, okay, it's this way.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah.
We believe you.
I believe you.
Well, for me, it's that way is east. That way. Okay. And for Janine, or over in England, east is like this. It looks like deer antlers. Okay, no big deal. Okay, so here's what I hope y'all found this valuable. My plan is I'm going to do this because I've still got that. Yesterday and today was only 2 sessions. So my plan is I'm going to keep doing this on Thursday for at least the next few weeks until I go out of town for a week. But the next one is something about Brendan Burchard. It was a big one there. And then Jamie Kern Lima. And then I've got some more. So I'm going to continue doing this at 2 o'clock Central Time, Thursday, for the next several weeks. Okay. So there's 2 things also. A couple of you already are in this, but we kind of have, I have a thing called the Power Hour, which is every Friday at 2 o'clock, the same time as this one was. It's just tomorrow and not today. And what it is it's basically group coaching. And we hold each other accountable. We work about mindset and habits and disciplines and relationships. And we might talk about marketing, and we talk about all kinds of stuff. Okay. Last time we talked about, what movie was it? I said I never seen Star Wars. We talked about Star Wars. I've never seen 1 second of it. Not 1 second. So we talked about Star Wars, and I was being the judging eyes of everyone that was on the call last week was quite painful, but I had my shields up, so y'all couldn't get to me with all this. Oh yeah, or Harry Potter. Yeah, 100%. Okay. So I've never seen Harry Potter, and I've never seen Star Wars, but the whole talk about Power Hour wasn't about that, but whatever I was talking about, it was related to whatever we were talking about, because I was making a point about things. But what we do is every Friday at 2 o'clock, or pretty much every Friday, 95% of the Fridays of the year, we all get together, we encourage each other, we hold each other accountable, and people have other ideas, and we put it out. How would you solve this? I may have an answer. Julia may have an answer. Candace may have an answer. Mark may have an answer. And on one of the calls, this lady named Colleen, oh, by the way, Julia, Colleen's joining us officially starting again tomorrow, by the way. She had a book, and she had a title for her book. And I said, okay, what's the title? And whatever she said. And I said, well, I don't know anything about titles, but that's 2 subtitles, and that's really, really, really long. I mean, it was basically a short paragraph for her title, and her said, you're going to have that thing wrap around the cover to get that on the book. And then she said, well, I'm open to suggestions. And she said, what was it about? And one of the guys in the Power Hour, Reggie, he said, what about done? And she was like, yes. And that's going to be the title of her book, that it came from the Power Hour, So I would encourage you, if you're even at all open to hearing and learning about the Power Hour, where, like I said, we meet and I've got a lot of resources, and like all those books over there, I've read almost all of them, and I'm always learning and I'm always growing. And whenever I mention a resource in the Power Hour, they get it too. I just give it away. Okay. So what I'm going to do is on Facebook here in a second, and on the chat here, I'm going to put a link that goes to a video that I made, and it's got a video that kind of more explains about the Power Hour, and yes, Bunko Pop. That Julie, that's correct. There's one that says Matrix. The one that's from Matrix 1 is like $65, which is a little steep. The ones from Matrix 3, which is not as good as Matrix 1, is like 15. So, the one that gets the real Matrix. But anyways, that link goes to a little video I made, and it just talks about the Power Hour and, kind of what happens. And then there's a short questionnaire. And then after that, we'll have a conversation. We'll have a 30-minute talk. And if that's something you're interested in, you're in, no problem. Now, full disclosure, this isn't free. There's a small monthly investment, but when you're invested, when you're interested, you're invested, you play different when you're paying for things instead of free. And then also there's one more thing. If you really like the Brennan Burchard stuff, which it was called GrowthDay Live. I'm going to put a link in this too. He has an app called GrowthDay, and it's all personal development all the time, 24/7, 365. I mean, you couldn't even begin to get through all that content in a year. It would be impossible unless you didn't sleep. But seeing how we're all not cyborgs around here, we do need to sleep at some point. But if you're interested in the GrowthDay app, there's a free trial. There's I put the link in both of them. Now that's my link, so like I get a kickback off that. But GrowthDay is a ridiculously good value, ridiculously good. It's $500 for the whole year. Every single day, Brennan Burchard comes out and gives a daily fire. It's an audio program. It might be 16 minutes. It might be 18 minutes. It might be 30 minutes. But the thing about that is, if you don't listen to it that day, it goes away. It's called the daily fire, not the weekly fire. Daily. Okay. Then every Monday, it was announced at this GrowthDay event I went to, every Monday, this guy joins Brennan Burchard. Ed Mylett joins Brennan Burchard, and he gives an exclusive video that's not available anywhere else. But it's on Monday, which means Monday at midnight, bye-bye. It's gone. It's got Jamie Kern-Lima. It's got Anthony Truck. It's got all the people I'm going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks. They're all in there. And it's got a journal. It's got daily prompts, evening prompts, life scores. It's based on this book from Brennan Burchard, High Performance Habits, which if you haven't read, I strongly recommend you do. It's really, really, really good. And this is really good too. I mean, Power of One More, really good. But that's what the GrowthDay is. So I got a link in the chat, and I'll put it in the email for the recording as well. That link I have is for my group, and Candace is in the group. Julia's in the group. Angie's been on one of the calls before, who was in here earlier. And there's about 10 or 11 or 12 of us. And we meet together and encourage each other every single week. So I would strongly recommend, if you're even at all even open to joining something like that, click that link. If you're open about Growth Day and you want to see more about it, that you can use that link there. And there's a 7-day free trial where you can see what the app's about and just, see. And now the only thing is, if you get it and you want to try the free trial and you pay for it on your phone, it's tied to the app store. So that's how whatever card is attached to your app store or whatever it's called on the Android phones, Google store or whatever it's called. After 7 days, that's when you get charged. But you could at least try it out and see, hey, this is something that's, that's pretty valuable. So far, he said in there, Brendan Burchard said in the event, he has never seen a successful person who does not journal. Now, Brendan Burchard, in the coaching world, he charges $1 million for a year. $1 million. Like 1,000,000. $1 million. And he gets it. And he said they're normally done in about 6 months. Now, one of his clients, probably you've heard of him, Usher. Yeah, that's one of his clients, or one of his former clients, or as he calls himself, Ursher. Okay. Another one of his clients, who you may or may not have heard of, on YouTube, there's a guy named Mr. Beast. I think he has 700 million followers. I mean, it's maybe not maybe 70 million, maybe 700 million might be a little bit extreme, but this guy has worked with Brendan Burchard. He's got, let me see. So I don't downgrade Mr. Beast and I give him his props. Okay. On Twitter, he's got 20.4 million. All right, see you, Janine. I'm done in about 30 seconds anyway. On Twitter, Mr. Beast has 20.4 million followers. And he does, he helps people with his money. He gives a lot of his money away. Let me see what he is on Instagram. I'm not on the gram, but let me see. I am, but I'm not active on there. Let me see what Mr. Beast has on here. Mr. Beast. On Instagram, he has 39.1 million followers. Okay, so between those two, he's got 60 million followers. And then that doesn't count Facebook and whatever else he's on. Okay. And somebody else who Brendan Burchard has worked for is a lady I like to call Oprah. As in Oprah Winfrey, the billionaire. Okay. So all that stuff he teaches is in this GrowthDay app. In the GrowthDay app, you get the audio book of this book, the deluxe audio book, and you get there's a course that he has called High Performance Habits Builder, and that's in there too, and it's all included. So I put those links in there. I hope this was valuable for y'all, and I hope y'all at least took something out of it. I like doing these, so my plan is I'm going to continue doing them. And next week we're going to go back into what Brendan Burchard said, and then in 2 weeks we're going to go what Jamie Kern-Lima said, and she sold It Cosmetics for 1.2 billion. Not terrible. So, I mean, 1.2 billion. I mean, 1% of that, and I'm set for life, for sure. No questions asked. Okay, but she spoke for 2 hours, and she was supposed to get an hour, but she got an extra hour because she asked. So, just remember the matrix, the one. All right. Thanks, Johnny Wan. So tell all your friends these are going to be free for the foreseeable future. And like I said, the next one next week, same time, it's going to be 2:00 next Thursday, and we're going to go over all last week and all today was only the first day, the first before lunch on the very first day. And I still got 3.5 days left comfortably. So any further questions before we go? Okay. All right. Well, I'll see y'all smiling faces tomorrow at 2:00. Oh, thank you. Third finger golf clap. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Y'all have a great one.